Good afternoon, everybody. We have a working session today, Tuesday, November 10th at 12:30. Let's start with a call to order. Okay. And at this meeting, we anticipate there will be a quorum present and issues requiring official action will be considered and discussed, but there will be no official action or voting at this meeting. So, a couple of things. We are blending, for those of you new to this, we are now blending our legal and finance meetings. And so bear with us as we get into this new process. Also, we should also begin by acknowledging we have an important city business to address. But understand there are some, an emotional and historic event has been unfortunately lumped into this. And we were reminded at the last council meeting there were many people in our community touched by the Indian lands issue, which is number 5. But we will be cognizant and respectful. There are unmarked graves in our community, and we just need to give thoughtful consideration and dignity to the discussion today. And lastly, at the end of this meeting, since this is a new process, we will welcome feedback. What did we do good? What could we do better? And we want everybody's input on this so we can grow this working session to a nice, efficient, productive part of our city. So thank you. We do not have any presentations today, to my knowledge.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Go ahead. You have the floor.
So when we're talking about an item, will it be read in for the benefit of the people here, or we're just going to treat this like a working session and everybody knows what we're talking about?
Council leadership has, go ahead.
I think we need to treat this like agenda review where we just go through the items one by one and department heads and council can discuss them as needed.
Okay. Well, I'm the
Formal
leader
actions
of the,
taken, is it?
I'm leader of the Legal and Finance. I would defer to some of my folks here since this is a new process. Do we want to read things in or just dive in?
I say we just go one by one and then maybe at the end give some feedback of what we can do.
Okay.
Okay? All right,
'Cause
so
I'm
we'll
taking
start with
number
number 1, Public Works. I'll defer to Director Tech. Great. Mr. Koontz, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. I'm Dan Kuhn. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director for the City of Rapid City. And I'd like to speak to the first 4 items on the agenda concerning ordinance revisions, mainly for our water and sewer systems. Again, as this is a working session and we're all kind of learning, I have some options. I have a presentation. It's the same presentation that was given at the last Public Works Committee meeting. It's also attached to the agenda items if you had a chance to review it. At the Public Works Committee meeting, we asked that if anybody had questions, they email me, and that way we could either answer them or be better prepared for this working session. We received 1 question from a council member and responded to it. So I would leave it up to this committee or the council whether you'd like to see the presentation or have an open question and answer discussion, or how you would like to proceed.
Well, I looked at the presentation, so I don't feel a need to see it. I thought it was a good one, though. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask a couple questions on item number 1. So this is a utility relief program. How is this accessed by people? How are they to know, and how do they get the utility relief?
The process is they can come down to City Hall or call the Public Works Department and request a form to fill out to do that. As far as public information wise, Right now, it's on our website. Anybody that's interested could find it there. One thing we could do longer term is put a reminder on a utility bill every, twice a year or something like that to remind people that this is available to them.
So you might not know the answer to this question, but do you have any idea how many people have accessed this program?
Shannon, you're kind of our expert. How many have signed up for this to date?
At the last renewal, we had about 2,700 people on the program.
Oh, great, okay, that's good to know. And then this actually shows up on their bill that they have a discount or something on their bill. Okay, great. Madam Chair, if I can go on, I have questions on 4 as well.
Sure. Anybody want to discuss 2? 3? Number 4, you have the floor, Ms. Drew.
Thank you. So I saw something that was interesting to me here, that we're no longer going to, somehow going to not let people access water from water hydrants. Is that actually a problem here? People just access water from their hydrants?
No, we're not forbidding water to be taken from a fire hydrant. What we're saying is if you want to take water from a fire hydrant, here are the procedures that you need to follow.
Really?
Yes.
So I can actually say I wanted to have fire hydrant water for a summer day, it's hot, gonna invite some kids over and just access that if I let you know?
Well, if you come down, set up an account, pay a fee, get a hydrant meter assembly, have the city install that hydrant meter assembly, and then pay for the water that you use out of the hydrant, yes, you could do that.
Okay, that just seemed kind of fun. Anyway, and then I saw this a couple times in your presentation, require property owners to open their own utility accounts. And is this to keep them from making the tenants open the utility accounts, or
Right now, we allow either an owner or a tenant to open a utility account. What the issue that we have is when a renter moves out, not oftentimes, if they don't pay their final bill, we have no way of tracking them. They move someplace else, they move out of town. So we're requesting that the utility account be in the owner's name. The owner has a tie to the property, they have a responsibility for the property, and they're somebody we know how to contact.
You're requiring it or requesting it?
Requiring it.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of my questions.
Any more discussion on number 4? Great, thank you, Mr. Coon.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Nordstrom, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dan, I was the one that asked the question about the utility fees, and primarily my concern was on the landlords. And I don't know if that's associated with number 4 or not, but shall I say the out-of-town landlords that are not paying their utility fees, is there a mechanism in any of these ordinances that addresses that issue, or or is it a minor issue?
If the renter is paying their rent and the utility, or the owner is not paying their utility bill, what we would do is go through the process of shutting the water off or sending delinquent notices. If the renter is wrong, they have legal action that they can take against that owner for not paying the utility bill if they're still paying their rent, But then that becomes between the renter and the owner. We don't know that relationship, how that's working.
Becomes a civil case then?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that if we needed some kind of a mechanism for delinquent landlords, something would be available, but at the present, we don't have anything.
No.
Thank you.
Any more discussion on 4? Great, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to mayor and council items, number 5. Anybody like to take a lead on this? Mr. Nordstrom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been working on this and rewriting this a couple of times, and then I've come up with a couple of different iterations. I unfortunately didn't have time to send this to the city attorney for getting any feedback and comments, so I would appreciate it if there's any leniency or leeway we could address some of the concerns that I have. Primarily in the whereas sections, it refers to, and I'm not making any motions or making any, just open for discussion, is if we can avoid making any reference to, in this resolution, if we can make any, avoid any references to the agencies that are being mentioned within the resolution, to remove the language within that resolution that has to do with the language referring to non-compliance. I think that is an issue that should best be settled by another entity, such as maybe the Attorney General or the Department of Interior. I don't have the expertise in who should be making that determination. But my sense is that it should not be up to the city to maybe making the determination that any one of these three agencies are in non-compliance. So if we could strike that from the language within the resolution, I'm just curious if the remainder of the council members would be receptive to that language. And I'll respond to if anybody has any questions on that.
Mr. Jones? Make sure you're...
Thank you. Can you give us some examples of what you're talking about here, please, Mr. Nordstrom?
One moment. Trying to bring up the specific language in there. A couple of locations that I have here, and unfortunately my printer didn't work very well, so what I'm looking at is, if I can do a quick count on it, it is on page 3, the third whereas from the bottom. It has to do with naming some different agencies within the whereas portion of the resolution. And then I also want to point out within that whereas is that we want to acknowledge any wrongs committed by the city or other agencies or other entities. I just want to say we want to acknowledge those wrongs that were committed to the Native community. And then strike the remainder of that language in the from the bottom of page 3. And I apologize, I don't have this readily available for everyone, but essentially my intent is to strike the language where it identifies the three entities, looking for the exact language, the Canyon Lake Activity Center, the Native Assisted Living Center at Clarkson Healthcare Village, and a Tribal Health Treatment Facility. If we can just acknowledge the wrongs but not lay blame upon these agencies for any wrongdoing and not recognize the non-compliance within that following whereas. So it'd be in the second whereas. I'm proposing for discussion purposes if we can strike that whole paragraph from the resolution. And I'm open for further discussion.
May I continue? Thank you. So these organizations that are identified in that whereas are extremely involved in this process.
Yes.
So why wouldn't they need to be involved in the resolution just as much as the city of Rapid City or the school district or anyone else?
If you're comfortable with striking the language that has to do with the non-compliance, I can go along with that too, but my intent is just striking the language where it identifies those three agencies as being in non-compliance.
I want to make sure we're looking at the same whereas. The third one from the bottom on page 3, correct?
Yes.
Whereas the current occupants of A1, A2, and B, that one? Okay, I don't see in that paragraph where there's any admission of blame, guilt, responsibility, whatever. There's just a statement that they do not wish that the land upon they are located on revert back to the federal government, since it would cause them great expense. Where in that statement is there an admission of guilt or wrongdoing or something?
Madam Chair, I'll yield if, so I can have a chance to look that up.
This is an open discussion.
Yeah.
So as long as we're being
Yep.
respectful, I think it's great. Yep. Was it the third one up or the fourth one up?
Third one from the bottom. Yes, on page 3. To me, part of this whole issue, are we speaking with masks on or masks off?
Whatever's easier.
Halfway. To me, a big part of this whole thing has been clarity and standing and responsibility as to who should be at the table and who shouldn't be at the table. So it appears to me, as we're discussing this, that everyone who needs to be at the table should be part of this resolution. And with all due respect to my colleague down at the end, if that's how we're speaking today, that's why I can't see a reason to remove them. Seems like we need to know exactly who's involved, who has standing in this and who doesn't, and who needs to be involved in the decision-making.
Madam Chair, if I may, whatever the councilman desires, I'm okay with that. It's just that my concern is that we're identifying the three entities or three agencies as being in non-compliance. And if I missed that, my apologies, but essentially that's my intent, is to take away that, I also want to take away that concept of being in non-compliance. And hopefully that the remainder of this resolution doesn't identify these three entities as being in non-compliance. The other part of it is the language being used in the introduction and the presentations that we've been hearing is that it has to do with the term swap. During the mayor's presentation last week at the city council meeting, he also acknowledged the term may be incorrect as well, as using the language of a swap may be incorrect. That's another substitution I would like to offer up for discussion, is to, number one, remove any reference to noncompliance, and number two is that it'll be more along the line of a trade or an exchange versus a swap. Because the understanding of it is that the folks that I've visited with is that it is primarily have to do with they have to give up this land so that they get some other property. That's not the intent of this, or at least of my considerations. Is that's not my intent. Is that the agencies would have to give up their property to get new property. If we can just identify them as being, let somebody else deal with the noncompliance, and then offer up the comparable property within or near the city.
I think the noncompliance, identifying the level of noncompliance plays a big role in this, because noncompliance would identify that someone did something wrong along the way, and then there has to be some kind of compensation for the wrong that was done. And so before any of that is removed, I think all of those questions have to be answered. And again, it comes back, in my opinion, I can't get this word out of my mind, but it comes down to standing. Who has the right to bring this forward? The group that has spoken before us several times and has presented themselves very well, argues a very good case, and has a lot of things to say. However, there are other people in town who do not believe that this group has standing to bring this forward. And so the question of standing, if I'm going to sue Richie Nordstrom because he did something wrong to me, I have to prove that I have a right to sue him, that he did something wrong, and that I have legal standing to sue him. So as I've thought about this and talked to a lot of people about this, because this is a huge issue in front of us, there has to be standing. The right parties have to be identified. We have to know who did something wrong, if someone did something wrong along the way, who did it, and what is the right way to compensate for that. Is there liability? Is there culpability here? And so that's why, as we're dialoguing, Mr. What's the name again? Mr. Nordstrom, sorry. That's why I see the need for clarity, meaning we keep everyone involved until they have no reason to be at the table, rather than remove people and just kind of hope the right people come along. Because at this point, to me, the right people who need to be involved in this haven't come along. There are very important organizations, governmental and other, in this process that we haven't heard anything from. And so I don't believe it's prudent for the city to just say, yep, you know, we did something wrong somewhere along the line, and this is how to fix it. It may be the right way to fix it. It certainly could be. But I think there has to be more investigation, and we have to hear from all these groups that have standing, such as Monument Health, Clarkson Healthcare, the Rapid City School District, the Senior Center, the Department of the Interior, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. There's just an awful lot of people, and I think they're around us. I think they're all around the perimeter just watching what Rapid City's going to do. And the people that like it are going to love it, and the people that don't are going to have a fit. And I think we're in a very cautious place right now that we really need to make sure that the steps we take are accurate. And I firmly believe that my colleagues at the table probably agree with that in their own way, one way or another. We all want to get this right. But I can't help but think it comes back to standing and who has the right to do what and who has the right to compensate who for what. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just a summation of my comments is that let's let the mayor develop this planning committee to come up with a plan towards the resolution, rather than identifying people that are in noncompliance, because I think that can be debated. I believe that it shouldn't be up to us to make that determination of who is in compliance or noncompliance. And so my hope and my desire is to see the mayor make that determination of who gets to be at the table. I don't want to advocate for one party or another, and I don't want to be disingenuous to another party that should be at the table and not, or disqualify them from being at the table.
If I may, Councilman Nordstrom.
It should be inclusive. Yes.
Joel, did you want to weigh in on anything my colleagues are discussing?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk, and I've sent an email to the council with some thoughts on this before the meeting on the 2nd, but the entity that has standing is very clearly the Department of the Interior. And I think what the Department of the Interior has told you is, as a community, we can work this out, and it appears that the majority of the community is satisfied. Now, what that means is probably ultimately going to be up to the Department of the Interior. Then they'll sign off on it and be okay with it. If this process were to collapse, as I indicated in my email, I think the next step is for the Department of the Interior then to make a decision about how they want to proceed. Do they seek reversion of all 3 parcels? Perhaps they do that. Perhaps they only seek reversion of 1 or 2 of the parcels. Or perhaps they seek reversion, they decide not to seek any reversion of any of the parcels after looking at it in more detail. I think, the question then becomes what happens on those scenarios. If the Department of the Interior seeks reversion of all 3 parcels, what role are we going to play? And it probably ends up in litigation. Same with if it seeks reversion or one or more of the parcels. If they decide not to seek reversion, that may buy us some time, but I'm guessing the tribes or a group will then look at suing the Department of the Interior as well as the city and say, hey, you're not fulfilling your trust obligations or your obligations to us as members of the Native community. So it just, probably any way you look at it, ends up in litigation. It's just kind of, I think the only real question in my mind at this point is which side of the table is the Department of the Interior sitting on? Are they sitting on the plaintiff side of the table, or are they sitting on the defense side of the table? So, you know, the question I think that this resolution that you need to weigh is this resolution a path or to resolving this potentially without having to go down the litigation path? And if we go down the litigation path, then we'll start talking about things like standing. But I think, you know, while standing, I view it as a lawyer, as a legal theory to get into court or whether or not you have the right to sue. I think standing in this case, what we're really talking about is, do the people that are at the table represent the views of the community, and will ultimately the Bureau of Indian Affairs accept an agreement that is negotiated or that we come up with this group. Obviously, you've received some correspondence, and the Bureau of Indian Affairs has that indicate there may not be smooth sailing on this if you negotiate. And that's where I think, as Alderman Nordstrom has said, there's going to have to be some decisions made about, you know, who has a seat at the table and where this goes next. But again, the resolution lays out a framework, so the question is whether or not you support the framework, which is, and again, just to be clear, nobody is talking about these 3 parcels going back and then moving these groups. It's finding substitute land and monies so that these 3 entities can continue to remain on their current parcels. That would be the hope for resolution, which still needs to be fleshed out.
Mr. Evans?
Yeah, on Monday when I brought up these questions, there were really 2 of them. Why weren't all the entities represented in that original resolution? And exactly why did we need all of that detail in there? And with regards to the first one, over the course of the week, it's become very apparent that there's not a lot of trust between all these entities that want to be part of the discussion. I do know who we can trust, and we can trust this council to come up with something that's going to be great, because I think we can trust us to do the right thing. So with regards to that, I believe by Monday we can come up with something that is really, really good and maybe be available for first reading of some kind. I believe removing all of this detail allows us the freedom to do what I believe we intend to do. And that is come up with something even better than the people that are worried about this had in mind in the first place. I know that there's no trust because there's a history of somehow, you know, cheating certain parties. Well, I don't believe that is the intention of this entire resolution. I think it's to come up with a solution that honors everybody, values everybody, and does something even better than anybody had in mind when they started thinking about some kind of restitution for these lands. So as far as I'm concerned, the less detail enclosed in our resolution document that says move forward and get something accomplished and invite everyone to the table, I think we can do that and pass it very quickly, and I don't think there's any legal ramifications to that. I don't think we can be sued for trying to do the right thing and asking people to come to a discussion. And if that's what the resolution is for, I think we would need to move ahead quickly on this before it stalls. Thank you.
Mr. Stroman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I agree with Bill, with Alderman Evans, because I think the less detailed it is, the easier it's going to be for us to move forward. I think we get bogged down in too many details. If it's too detailed, then there's going to be too many places for people to have disagreements. One is, I agree with Richie. I don't want the resolution to say that any of these entities, whether it's Monument or the Senior Center or West Hills, are not in compliance with the intentions of the statute. I think that that is a debatable issue. There are letters from the actual Secretary of the Interior back from 1983 where he told Regional Health at the time that their purposes for the building, which is now Regional West or Monument West, is in compliance. It is a municipal use that is allowed by the statute, and that use would not cause the property to revert to the United States. We also have correspondence from, I think, back in the 60s with Canyon Lake Senior Center to the same effect, saying this appears to be an educational use. They outlined what they were going to use the facility for. It was reviewed by the secretary, and he determined that seems to be acceptable under the statute, and this property would not revert under those uses. Now, there comes along in 2017 a letter from an acting regional director, or I'm not sure what his title was, and he said, well, it appears like it might be a violation. It's very equivocal, I'll say that. And so I think that we can get to where we want to get without having to recite that there are some noncompliance or some property uses that would cause this property to revert to the United States. I also think that, just like the city attorney told us a few minutes ago, this resolution is to provide a framework for us to move forward. So I would like the framework to be broad enough so that we can work within that to get to the goal that we want to get to, and that's to address the concerns of the community, whether it's portions of the Native community or the entire Native community or the non-Native community, because we're all Rapid City and we want to move forward. We think this is a good idea. So let's not get bogged down at this point in the process with picking nits over different languages and things like that. Let's just get a broad framework that says, hey, we want to move forward on this. We want to address this situation and come up with a workable solution. So I think that the things that have been raised so far, and I think that Mr. Jones also makes a very good point. We want to have everyone to be included that needs to be included. So I think all of the suggestions from the council so far have been valid. I think that they are a positive approach to this, and I think we should try to move forward with a broader encapsulation of what we're trying to do here, rather than getting down into the really 4 or 5 page with 34 whereas paragraphs. I think we can do this a lot more efficiently if we just stick to the main goal.
Mr. Solomon? Solomon?
Thank you. Make sure my beard's not all out of cattywampus with the mask. Appreciate the discussion on this. I think Mr. Stroman is talking about laying out a framework, and I believe, Mr. Stroman, you've been working on some sort of framework, and that maybe the whole council would be nice for us to see kind of what you have in mind. As far as I can tell, and based on what this group has put in the resolution, I see 3 parts to the resolution that I think are important for us to address. Maybe first part is about acknowledging the murky history of this land, and whether it's legal or not, that's to be determined, but I think definitely just some wonkiness happened here. And I guess the big part of the resolution is acknowledging the history. And we know that from listening to the Native American community that there's a long history here. They're wondering what happened to this and how did it come to be, and did anybody act improperly? And we don't know for sure whether that they did or not, but we know there's history, and I think it's important that whatever framework we have or whatever revisions we do to the resolution should acknowledge the history. It's fair. I think that goes a long way, because the fact is we do have unmarked graves of children and things like that needs to be acknowledged, the human beings. And so I don't think we should escape that part of the resolution. It may not be a legal matter per se, but I think it's a symbolic gesture on our part to say, yeah, these graves should have been marked. These human beings should have been acknowledged. And what happened here on this land, that history should be told. And I think the resolution puts that as part of public record and acknowledgement. And I think, for one, that's the least we could do. Two, the second part of the resolution that I see here really revolves around whether this is where we get hung up, is whether the city of Rapid City used the land improperly. And then the third part of the resolution is trying to work towards a positive resolution. So going back to the second part, I think this is where most of us struggle, because how we know it's used properly is if it was used for municipal and educational purposes. And then that's where we get questions, and we like Mr. Jones said, standing, who is responsible, because the city does own the land that the hospital and Clarkson are on. Is that right, Joel? Yes, we own that land, we lease the land. And so the question are the healthcare facilities part of municipal purposes? I suppose the case could be made. Then that leads us to Canyon Lake Activity Center. And whether that counts as an educational purpose or not, I don't know. I think a case could be made, but my bigger concern there is the city of Rapid City as an organization never had anything to do with it. I believe that was the school district that gave the money to the Canyon Lake Activity Center, and the city's hand was never in that. So that's where it's hard for us. Sometimes we're like, well, we had nothing really to do with that, except that we do care about the Canyon Lake Activity Center and the people there. And so that's where I think if we have any adjustments, it's regarding whether the city acknowledges that we played a role in that or not as an organization. Not just as a community of Rapid City, but as the legal entity of City of Rapid City. But the third part of this, and the part I think we should work towards, is a positive resolution, because the fact is, however this leads, we want something that's a win for the whole community. And we've heard things like building a cultural center, hotel, and housing, which, quite frankly, all of those things play right up to the kind of things that we're trying to do. So even though it is specifically geared towards the Native American community, I do think it can help the entire community. So to that end, in that resolution, I think that's great. What that amount is, we have $20 million based on the structure and land of those three properties. Whether it's that or not, I think those are difficult decisions that we have to make. But the resolution of those things happening in our community, do they make us better? Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. If I have any hang-ups on this, it's just that I don't know if the city has legally acted improperly, and I don't want to note that in a resolution, but I do think we should acknowledge the history and work towards a positive resolution. And what Joel has written a very, very lengthy email to the city council acknowledging, and I'm not sure how much we are allowed to share, but just acknowledging that we are, by passing this resolution, nothing's going to happen without the blessing of the Department of Interior, if that, I mean, I suppose. And the $20 million, where does that come from? And Joel, I do have a question for you on this, if you don't mind going to the podium as you walk up there. So this 20 million, it's hard for us to just pull that out of a hat right now with as many things that we have going on. We know some of that could be vision funds, land. Could we potentially go after, I mean, if we're acknowledging that part of this 20 million, for example, is for Canyon Lake Activity Center and the school district gave it to them, I mean, do we have a case to go after that money from somebody else? Or is this something that we decide is just an investment from our city coffers versus going after another legal entity?
I would look at it as an investment from our city coffers. Now, if I think those organizations or other entities, depending on what the proposal is, may be willing to participate. I know the mayor has had conversations with the superintendent, and for some of our meetings over the last 4 years, the school district certainly has been represented, but I don't think we could sue the school district over it. I mean, like you've said, I mean, really legally, this parcel isn't our responsibility. I mean, frankly, we could legally walk away from all 3 parcels and let the chips fall where they may. But the 2 that we own or have the most interest in are the hospital and the nursing home. And as you've said, legally, we may not be bound, but you've all indicated, or mostly elected officials have indicated their support for the activity center. So, I mean, it's really up to you, but I would not look towards another entity to necessarily contribute. I think if you view the 20 million as the number, then that you should expect that it will come out of city coffers. That's not to say somebody in the future might not agree, like the hospital, to contribute something or help with that, but at this point, I would say there's no commitments from anyone else.
So the city could take donations from other entities?
Sure. I mean, look, I mean, you obviously don't just have 20 million sitting around looking. I mean, part of this is to come up with a plan. I think as I've laid out in my email, some of the plan in the beginning may be easier, but I don't know that we'll have the whole 20 million figured out in 6 months. But there's some definite first steps, I think, that as far as coming up with a plan where we could hopefully map out sooner and look at. But, you know, as we've discussed, probably the likely funding source is out of vision funds, and you have allocated the vision funds, and I forget when the next round starts, but you're not going to have any money till then, and I'm thinking that's probably 2022. Or, okay, so the process would start sometime next year. So, but the first monies you'd have available out of the vision funds would be 2022. So it's going to at least be that long.
So with this process, if, let's say we were to pass some resolution, some form of it, we have like a letter up here that we received from opposition groups within the Native American community. Would the Department of Interior kind of flesh that out? Is that something, I don't know who speaks for everybody because we don't have a legal entity that we're dealing with here. That flesh itself out with the Department of Interior in terms of whether this actually comes to fruition or not?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I think the Department of the Interior is going to look at that and try to decide whether or not they want to continue pursuing this. I think if the Department of the Interior, to some degree, that to decide who they want to take input from and reaching a resolution of this is kind of up to the Department of the Interior. I do agree. I mean, I think the Department of the Interior, I commend the group. They've gotten it to this point. I do personally believe the Department of the Interior has to become more actively involved in this going forward. And I think it's really up to the Department of the Interior to determine who they're going to take input from to come to an agreement regarding these 3 parcels in the future.
Well, so in terms of framework, for any changes to a resolution, I would support acknowledging some history here. I think it's very important that we do that. I also think looking at this like an investment in our community is a way forward, and I do appreciate that because, quite frankly, I think it could be a win for the whole community. If there are any changes, I just think being cautious about the wording of whether the city is at fault for improperly using this for municipal or educational purposes. Some of this, not even the city's business. For example, Canyon Lake Activity Center, city did nothing in that. So it's hard for us to be the judge and say they did something wrong. I don't know whether that anything was done wrong or not. I'm suspicious, but that doesn't really hold up. So if I have any hang up, it's just in terms of whether the city of Rapid City as an organization is doing anything improperly. But do I think some things went down somewhere along the way? Probably, but I couldn't tell you. I don't think I could testify to that. That's the tough part in a resolution for us to do. And that's where we have, if you want to know, you were talking about wording earlier, Mr. Jones and Mr. Nordstrom, it has to do with, just looking at here in the whereases, it has to do with whether it was for municipal or educational purposes or not. And I think those are probably technically what you're doing. But at the end of the day, this is a resolution that really doesn't do anything other than establish a way forward, and I'm okay with a way forward. I would love to see Mr. Stroman's draft that he has to see how it puts this together and whether the spirit of all of this continues in a more succinct way or not. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I haven't seen it yet, but I think that would be important for all of us to look at as a different resolution to see if it does, I guess, meet these kind of three chunks of the resolution. I'll yield. Thank you.
We have 4 people in the queue. I'm going to go to Darla Drew since she has not spoken yet, and then I will, if that is okay with my colleagues. Thank you. Ms. Drew, you have the floor.
Thank you. This conversation reminds me of a friend that I once had who always believed there was more time. I always believed there was extra time, and that's kind of dangerous because she was a grant writer. After she'd lost about 3 grants, I think she understood that there really is a time limit. But she always tried to get her way out of it. She'd call them and ask for more time, and sometimes it worked. But sometimes your time is up. And I think we're kind of at that point with this resolution. I could say yes to this resolution and be fine with it. I would say yes today and be fine with it, but I know that there are other people on this council that would not support that, and I could not get it. I could not see that this would pass. I was presented with a new resolution about 2 minutes before the council working session started, so I haven't had time to look at that at all. So here we are just talking, and that's great. But I think in this case, I'm going to really need more time to look at the possible substitute resolution. In my estimation, if all the resolution said was this: be it further resolved that the mayor of Rapid City and the Rapid City Common Council will work with the Native American community members and the Rapid City Indian Boarding School Lands Project to devise and present a draft plan, period. That would be fine with me. I think that'd give us enough information to go forward. That's one sentence. I think everybody might be happy with that. We're going to work on a plan. We're going to get together, us, the mayor, Native American community members, Indian Boarding School Lands Project people, and that doesn't discount anybody in this room that doesn't like this plan. That means they have a voice. And we go back, we look at it, and we get together and we try to go forward. That's what we're trying to do, trying to go forward. And, you know, there are folks that said they didn't know about it. Yeah, there are great big issues in this community that go past me all the time, and I'm on the city council, you know. So I think it's easy to lose track, and especially in these times. We have COVID, we had elections, we had all the stuff was going on. It's hard to keep track and raise a family and have your job and do the other things you're supposed to do for your community. We're all involved in the community in a lot of different ways, and we're all not represented by this council in a lot of different ways. So to think that the Indians are all going to be represented by one group is really crazy. I think that we have to take a breath, and I don't want to have much more time on this because I think time is of the essence to get this done. But I'm telling you guys, if I had that one sentence, I would say yes to it today. Thank you.
Mr. Lehman?
Darla, I actually completely agree with you. I think that we're just doing a lot of talking here today because you were just handed a draft 5 minutes ago. Mr. Landine, would you be able to review that and get back your thoughts in the next day or two? Once we get you a copy, of course.
Yes.
Jump in. This is informal. This is informal, right?
Correct.
So I actually have done 2 drafts, and they are meant to be more simplistic. The first one, I understood from Joel that probably didn't say enough, and so I did a second one. And I'm sorry that I don't have those available to me right now, but I can disseminate them as soon as this afternoon to the rest of the council and to Joel. I personally like Darla's idea really good. I think it's a great idea because that's really what we're trying to do. It's a matter of, I guess, I didn't know that approach would satisfy the people that wanted a more expansive recitation of the history. I will, after this meeting this afternoon, I will circulate that to all council if that's all right, and to Joel, and both drafts, and we can pick those apart.
Okay. Mr. Nordstrom?
Thank you. I was going to allow Mr. Jones to go first since he was in the queue first, but if it's your call, if you want to go to him or you want to.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Just to reiterate some of the points that I've been trying to stress is that we need to acknowledge all the wrongdoings that have been done. And I think it's important that be included in this conversation. Alderwoman Drew is going to have to reread that comment again to me because the initial thought was that that's a good starting point for some additional conversation. But if I can get a chance to take a look at it and read it a little bit closer, I think it's a good process to be included into the final resolution as well. But I always keep coming back to what the mayor said at the last council meeting and what he was trying to do for the explanations of this resolution. And I don't want to discount those comments either from that. And I'm having the sense and the feel from the rest of the council members that the shortened version of the resolution and Alderwoman Drew's comments being included in this final resolution is very workable. It does make sense and kind of gets us to the end point, meaning the end point for me is that everybody gets to be at the discussion table for setting up this plan. It doesn't disqualify anybody. If I can get a chance to review, again, the shortened version and in addition to Alderwoman Drew's comments and suggestion, I think it gets us there. I really do. I think it gets us to the point where everybody is in agreement to getting to this setting up for what's called the framework for that discussion. So, and let them come up with the dollar amounts. Let them come up with what would be right. Let them finish up with all the planning that needs to be done, rather than us trying to dissect what should be at that discussion table and what should be in that framework. Let them do that process. Thank you. Yield.
Clear here. The sentence I gave is in the original resolution as given to us. It's on page 4. And so it be further resolved. On page 4, about 3/4 of the way down. So it's all, I didn't write it. It's right there.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you very much. I want to start off by saying how much I want to acknowledge and appreciate the work that the mayor and the Indian Boarding School Group has done to come this far. We must acknowledge the years of work that has been done, the research that has been done. It hasn't been easy, and we must acknowledge that, and I do. I truly appreciate it. I've done a lot of research myself, and I know the work they've been done. Now that it's at this stage, we have a responsibility as elected officials to do exactly what we're doing and dissect, ask questions, etc. So I hope no one involved on either side of the issue is taking offense or being bothered by the fact that we're diving in, but it's our job, and we take it very seriously. No matter what direction we question and we do our thing is to dive in and make sure we're representing the needs of the city. When I was in high school, I had the great opportunity to learn from Coach Dave Strain how to reach out and the needs of the Native American students that we had at Central High School and people who became good friends of mine over the years. I was just this kid growing up in Rapid City. Didn't really know much outside of what I thought I knew, and I thought I knew everything. And I realized at that time that there were some people in need, in great needs, had been in need, and still are in need today. Underserved citizens, underrepresented, whatever you want to call them, our Native American community members, our friends, have not been treated fairly and deserve to be heard. Those that have stated that they have been left out and not been listened to at our meeting a few weeks ago, well, now you know what's going on. You've heard it. It's time to get involved. It's time to not sit back anymore and complain that you're not part of the process, okay? I invite you to come and be involved. Armchair quarterbacking is no good in this. If you want a voice, if you want to get involved, it's time to do it now. So please do so. When I ran for city council, a big premise of my running was we need to make sure we are careful deciding what we need to do and what would be nice to do. There's a lot of needs to do, and there's some nice to do's. And I'm going to sound like a stinker here, but this part of it, I believe in my heart, has to be brought up. A $20 million commitment to something when we have streets and infrastructure that are suffering immensely. As I've talked to people in my ward and other areas about this, is a hard pill to swallow. And so we have to keep that in mind. We have money that can be used for a lot of things that need to be done, and be cautious in the nice to do. And I'm not saying this resolution isn't a need to do, but we can't throw around $20 million of, Joel, no offense, I'm just going to borrow your term, of substitute money. Substitute money to me means using money for something instead of something else. And there are a lot of places where we need to spend money on streets and infrastructure. We have to invest in our community, our entire community. So we need to keep that in mind as we move forward. Alderman Drew, I like your idea. Are we talking about bottom page 4, second paragraph from the bottom? Yeah. Okay. At our meeting last time, one of the things I commented on was all the whereases kind of got us all over the place, and that this was actually just exactly that paragraph. I'm not trying to steal your thunder at all, because I'm glad you brought it forward again. But that was...
Cheater.
No, I'm not that smooth, but thank you. But I think there's a path forward for this, but I just ask that we keep in mind all of these things, and we all have to juggle 80 balls. But I just felt compelled to bring that part of it forward because that plays a big part of it. And if we want our citizens to support this, they need to know that we have discussed, well, 20 million could have been done for this, 20 million could have been done for that. Absolutely. And we don't know what this is going to look like yet when we're done, but we have to be cognizant of that before we do anything else. Thank you.
Mr. Evans?
Well, as I think about it, this could be summed up very easily in a short sentence. We've got a resolution, the original one, that combines a moral obligation with legal obligations. The two are not the same thing. We should just, because there's a chance that one of these three-letter acronym entities, BIA, DOI, could decide there's no legal obligation by the city. That does not release us from a moral obligation, make things right, and I will pledge to the people out there that as long as I'm sitting here, I'm going to work to make things right, no matter what the legal entities do. So that's the problem with the original thing, and if you want to go back and look, I actually suggested the one-sentence Darla thing did at last Monday night's meeting. So, not to steal anyone's thunder, but it could have avoided a lot of talking, because I actually said that. So, I know. So let's go ahead and get something that satisfies our moral commitment to make this happen. And we'll let the legal part of it be worked out later. Thank you.
Ms. Drew, you have the floor.
I'm afraid to say anything that it'll get stolen from me. So here's the thing. We can take $20 million and repair roads, and guess what? Nobody's going to talk about it in 10 years from now. They won't remember it 20 years from now. It won't have anything to do with making amends with the American Indian community. It'll be forgotten. Roads are always going to be a hang-up for us. But this is an actual way forward for our community. And $20 million to build the trust that we kind of need. This has been happening for so long that I could easily say we could do the $20 million towards this. I know it doesn't come out of the air. I know that. I know it's tax dollars. But if we don't do something, guess what? We're going to be in lawsuits that are going to cost the taxpayers a hell of a lot of money. Because these guys, I'm talking about my Indian friends out here, not going away. They're ready. They're ready for this to happen. So we can spend our money wisely, or we can give it to the lawyers, because that is probably going to be our choice. Quote that.
Mr. Stroman.
I'd like to just, I think everyone's had a chance to express their views on this. I'd like to, okay, well, you're the chair. Why aren't you getting in there?
Because I'm the chair, I'm going last.
Okay. Oh, that's a little power play from the chair.
Oh, then I'll talk. I'll talk.
Go ahead. But I'd like to wrap this part of the discussion up, I guess, when you're done. So that's all.
I'm not doing a power play, just for the record. I've been taking notes just on what my colleagues have been saying, because this is something that I've been thinking about long and hard. But we have to understand that this is 10 years of research that these people have been doing. This resolution has been 4 years in the making, and it's with this group. And this group is represented by PhDs, attorneys, all the way across all the community. RAI is behind it. Atiapi is behind it. AIM and NDN, they're behind it. Our own Youth City Council is behind it. Yes, we might have some people that are opposed to this, two of which reached out to me, a Miss Gilbert and a Miss Whiteface, staunchly against this. I proposed to them, give me a solution. Crickets. I didn't hear anything from them. We're always going to have people that will be against something. Last Monday night, we had dozens and dozens and dozens of people that were staunchly for this. They're not here today. About 6 of those dozen have COVID, and that's why they're not here today. They expose themselves. They can't be here to share, once again, what they've gone through. I just get very nervous saying, is this how we're going to do business, where the majority of the community wants something, but then there's maybe a handful of the community members and then 6 council members, so a dozen people who just aren't comfortable with this, They're going to come and change this all around despite the overwhelming support for the original resolution. They asked us time and time and time again, please make a vote on Monday night, up or down. Don't send it to working session. And we didn't listen to them. So we mixed this in with the other parts of city business. I understand that we want to kind of whittle away at the whereases, and we're used to resolutions being a page or so. Again, 10 years. They want this history documented. It's important to them that the history is acknowledged, and they want a tangible amount in there. I can't argue with that. We say that we appreciate all the work, and here we are picking it apart. It just seems like history is repeating itself, just like I said on Monday. You know, I'm trying to find some sort of analogy, and what I come down to, because I love to cook, is we've got this big pot of soup, and you know, it's going to be this ethnic blend, and it's going to be delicious, and it's wonderful, and we have people that have this traditional recipe, and then we have this other part that comes in, and we're working on that, and we have this delicious soup. But then the corporation comes in, and they reduce it down to 2 gallons, and they add water to it, and they throw in their meat and potatoes, and then we're left with just kind of mush. And then we expect everybody to swallow it. I never thought that this resolution in its original form was something to be scared about. I understand that my colleagues want to be responsible and make sure that we're looking out for the city's best interest, but we also have to look out for our community as well. These fewer details, I don't think it's the right way to go. We need to acknowledge, we need to do an action plan, and we need to move this forward. I don't think we have much more time on this, and I don't want to feel like I'm pushing my colleagues either, but this resolution in its original form I don't think is bad. You know, the Tuesday after the meeting, I reached out to the 6 people that still had questions, and I said, you're not comfortable with it. I talked about trust, I talked about faith, and I gave you, not I gave you, but I said, take the lead on this, make this better. I look forward to seeing something. Nothing. I have not seen anything how this is made better. I reached out to the Indian Lands Group and said, did my colleagues read? They had questions, right? We have questions. I can't get behind this because I still have questions. Nobody reached out to them in a week. So we're going to fix something that somebody else created? I think we're making this worse. Talk about too many chefs in the kitchen spoil the soup. I'll leave it at that, Mr. Stroman. I'll let you.
I don't have anything else to add. I think we've had a good discussion, and I think that we have a pretty good framework, which is what I've heard from pretty much everyone. And the questions that we aired today, they weren't questions that were directed to the Indian tribe, the Tribal Lands Group. Those were questions that we have in general with the whole resolution. They weren't ones that could be answered by them. I mean, we've asked several times, where's the Department of Interior? No one's ever shown us where they are. But that being said, I still think that we're in a position where we can move forward, and we don't have to get into the details and the specifics and have everything figured out, but we can get a framework to move forward that should be acceptable to everyone.
Well, for clarification purposes, where are we? Is this just going to move to council on Monday? And we've got 6 people, so regardless of how it is, it'll just pass? No. Mr. Solomon?
Joel, would you like to weigh in?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's still some concerns with the resolution as proposed. So I think, you know, there was a draft last week I made comment on, and I guess there's an updated draft. There's been discussion today. I would say if you want to, if Mr. Stroman has draft, he said he would get this afternoon, that, you know, I will take a look at that, and then I would suggest if it appears acceptable or on the right track based on the discussion today and based on my discussions with the Indian Boarding School Land Group, that then we would forward that to the council and probably forward it to representatives of that group to get their input. And then we could take it up Monday night. Does that, and you can decide based on, you know, it's a little hard. It's going to be based, I assume, what you do on Monday night, based on your comfort level with that draft resolution and the response of the Indian Boarding School Land Group. I will also, again, endeavor to try to get the Department of the Interior to engage more. I don't think we'll get, frankly, an opinion on the resolution, but clearly if there's multiple groups coming out now saying, hey, wait, these people don't represent the Native community, you know, at some point the Department of the Interior is going to have to weigh in and give us some direction, because ultimately they're the ones that are going to have to sign off on this. And I don't think any of us want to invest a bunch of time negotiating and then find out the Department of the Interior isn't going to support what has been negotiated. So they clearly need to step up and become more actively involved.
Madam Chair, just to respond to your comments, I am one of those who've had questions all along. I think the group bringing this forward has done far more than they can to answer the questions from their perspective. My questions were for Joel, and so I asked Joel my questions, the same ones I've asked in public here, and he has responded in kind, as well as the mayor at our council meeting responded to my question. So I didn't need to ask Heather or the group questions because they've already gone above and beyond. We've had Zoom calls and conversations. That wasn't where my questions lied. I needed to know from the city standpoint on legal stuff, and that's where Joel has said, well, this really isn't a legal issue. This isn't really legal. This is about you deciding whether to invest. Two, you reached out to the six of us. I think you forwarded an email that you sent to somebody, John or John Roberts, I think, and so that's where Greg Stroman was tasked to revise the resolution, which I haven't read, which evidently was just sent in my inbox right before the meeting, so I haven't had a chance to look at it. I think that's what we all need to review, along as Joel and as well as the group bringing this forward, so that we can say, does this meet that? So all I wanted to do today was just say, here's the three elements of the resolution: acknowledgement of history, detailing the potential parcels, and then what a positive resolution would look like. I think that was what I had brought to the table. I'm all for simpler is better. I get that, but the fact is, there has been action this last week. I just wish it was in our hands right now so we could be discussing the revised resolution. That would have been very helpful, I think, to us all. So getting that out and seeing if that meets everybody kind of where they're at so that we can move forward, I think is the way to go. So so I appreciate Mr. Stroman saying he's going to get that out to all of us, as well as Joel, as well as to the group bringing this forward. That way we can make a decision on whether that's the way to go or a different direction. Thanks.
All right, any more comments on item 5? We're going to have public comment at the end. Thank you. All right, moving along, mayors and council items. We have approving minutes for October 27th, 2020, our Public Works. Any input, discussion, comments, questions, concerns? Moving along, same for the Legal and Finance meeting for October 28th, 2020. Straightforward. Community.
Are we on?
6 and 7.
Okay.
Approving minutes.
Okay.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our community development.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Number 8 is authorization to sign a contract with Black Hills Council of Local Governments so that they can complete environmental reviews for some of our more complex projects, our construction and rehab projects. We contracted with them last year, and this is an increase just slightly over the $30,000 from last year. We do intend to spend just slightly more than we did in the previous year. Number 9 is a substantial amendment to our annual action plan. And this is related to our first tranche of CDBG CV funds through the CARES Act. And so we have to amend a plan anytime we have substantial changes to the amount of funding we'll receive.
If you speak a little bit louder, I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course.
These masks are just
Of course.
muffly.
Any additional questions on that one?
I have a couple questions. So when I read about the substantial amendment to this, and there's a 5-day comment period, how are you letting people know about that? Is that just for the organizations or possible users of that money? I mean, how are people going to find out about making comments during this 5-day period?
Yeah, we post that in the Rapid City Journal as well as the Native Sun News, and we also send out broadcast lists to over 250 individuals.
I missed the last part?
To over 250 individuals via email. And it is for the public at large to comment on.
Okay, I missed it. I didn't see any awareness on this, so maybe I don't know. It seems important to me that people know about this block grant development, especially right now, you know, that there's more money available, right, through the CARES Act?
Right.
Okay, so maybe amp that up somehow. Maybe go back and talk to your folks and come up with a way that reach out to or the American Indian community and let them know.
Right, so this is the public notice on the amendment, but we have had several news stations pick up the story. We also send out 2 broadcasts directly to all of our contacts that we have announcing that the funding is available, as well as then publish that announcement in the newspaper as well. So there'll actually be 3 sets of publications. But yeah, I agree. Anytime we can get this out to the public.
It's different times now. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Solomon?
Thank you, Madam President. Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate you being here. For starters, just 2 questions. One, are we satisfied with the performance of Black Hills Council of Local Governments for administering this in the past year?
Very much, yes.
Very much,
It's
okay.
going very smoothly.
All right, just want to make sure that we're rehiring them. It must have meant they did a good job.
Yes.
I had no doubt, but I just wanted to make sure. 2, looking at the CARES Act funds, we have a proposed allocation here. Talk to me a little bit about what the planning and administration, is that worth $61,000 and change, or could that be better used going to people who actually need it?
You know, typically we do reserve 20%, which is that $61,000. That's our rough estimate of what we would need to implement this program. We will have additional reporting, quarterly reports on top of all of our normal reporting. But if it turns out that the reporting is not as substantial or not as time-consuming as we anticipated, we can always move more money to organizations. But we, of course, can't take it from organizations back to city. Keep in mind, the more federal funds we use for program administration means the less local taxpayer funds we are using for those purposes as well. So it does help with some of those extra expenses.
So you're telling me the federal government has a lot of paperwork to fill out?
A little bit.
A lot of requirements.
Okay.
But that's good to know that if for some reason you find out it's not as labor intensive or it's scaled very well with your other effort, you can make more money available, but you can't bring it back. So that's why you're being cautious in how you're allocating this.
That's right.
Correct. All right, thank you.
Mr. Nordstrom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm the liaison for the Black Hills Council of Local Governments, and I just wanted to express to Michelle Schulke here that they really appreciate the work that you're doing on part of their, what you have to do to help out. And so the partnership is very symbiotic. So It seems to be working well. And I hope to have within the next probably another month or so is to have a short report and a liaison part of the council agenda to explain a little bit further about what the Black Hills Council of Local Governments do for the community and how this partnership works out as well. And they're looking forward to continuing on with the work. So my recommendation is to fully support this.
Any other comments, 8 or 9? Thank you, Ms. Schulke. Director Young, do you want to go over 10, or Ms. Schulke?
Yeah, number 10 is the Community Investment Committee has recommended an additional $100,000 to Abbott House. They're working on a group home for foster children that's flanked by apartments, so as foster children age out, they can move into those apartments and still be close to their family. This $100,000 comes from contingency funds that we held back from the CDBG money back in 2019. It was tagged to be used for affordable housing projects. The project's moving along on budget, and so the committee recommends giving them an additional $100,000 to get the project wrapped up.
What a fantastic idea. That's great. Thank you. Any more discussion? Mr. Nordstrom.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. The questions I've had for Michelle, she's answered them very promptly in the emails and back and forth. Do you care to elaborate or want to follow up on the questions I've had for you, such as do we have enough money, and will we be getting some more money, those type of questions? And do you care to answer on those?
Sure. The big question is, are we getting any money through the CARES Act? Yes, we're getting 2 tranches. In addition to the 307, we'll also be receiving an additional 416. And so we'll have to do the exact same process. We'll have to do another amendment to the annual action plan and that processing. That's probably the last amount that we'll get through the CARES Act, unless for some reason other jurisdictions don't use their allocation. And then, of course, if Congress passes another bill entirely, there's a chance that the city could receive money through that. But, of course, we don't know at this point. And so we're operating under the assumption that $700,000 or so is really the cap through the CARES Act that we'll be implementing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is the our Chief Financial Officer, Pauline Sumption, is at the podium? No? Do you have something to add into it?
I'm next.
Next? Okay, thank you. I'll yield.
Have somebody in the queue. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. Michelle, just a question about this. This is approved preliminary substantial amendment to fiscal year 18 and 19. I guess I need some clarity on how that works since those years are already gone. How are we putting money back into those years of spending for this project?
Right. Abbott House was originally allocated $50,000 in 2018's program year for the purchase of the land. And then in 2019, they were allocated $141,000 to actually build the structure. We had a little bit of program income in that same year, 2019, so we also awarded an additional $15,000. And so they actually have 2 pots of money they're working from, and this supplemental money will come from 2019 as well. But a lot of times these projects straddle multiple years and sometimes receive funding for multiple years.
So when we're identifying fiscal year 18 and 19, that's when whatever part of the work was identified to be done, and so the funding attaches to that?
That's right.
Would that be the right way to think about it?
That's right.
So however it moves forward, we decide we can do this, here's how we're going to pay for it?
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Under Finance, 11 through 14, Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Madam.
Walk us through.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. 11 and 12 are just standard practice. 13, that is for our security cameras for this facility. We did go and request quotes from 2 different companies. The second company was not timely, and so it was unfortunately determined that customer service would probably not be to our standards, so we're still recommending the Convergent. And on 14, that agreement was attached late this morning, I believe. I received them late yesterday afternoon, So basically, there are only 3 changes to what our current amended agreement is, and that is our shares go down, our early term fees go down, which is a good thing, because, and then they're adding the City Hall account also to the agreement. The reason for that is because with the COVID and the shutdowns earlier in the year, where like Parks and Rec was closed during the summer, didn't open until September, our usage was way down, and that could have kicked in that early term fee to have to be paid, and so this will offset that as well.
Any discussion, comments? Mr. Nordstrom?
Thank you. A question for Pauline. Is, my assumption is the funding for the security system, has that funding source been identified?
Yes, that's out of the original allocation from, I can't remember, CIP or Vision, one of the two, that is paying for that.
Okay. I was looking for that, so thank you for that explanation.
And if I might, there's going to be
yes,
more
please.
security as well with the fob system, but this is just the camera system.
Thank you. And then I've got questions on number 14, probably just one question, but if I may. Yeah, number 14 is maybe more so of a comment. We had a Zoom meeting with Black Hills Energy on it, and then did they have an opportunity to explain to you about their, I don't know if it's called a rebate program, but essentially an enhancement for their energy assistance program? Have they shared that information with you?
They share that with us all the time. They look at our larger accounts every year to see if any of those qualify for it. I don't know if we have. I can't recall off the top of my head, but they have talked to us about that, yes.
The only one that I'm familiar with is the Civic Center, and then I remember hearing a question from Alderwoman Drew about some of the effects that could be potential for the city in that program. So I'll let her, if she has any more follow-up on that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right, moving to our Public Works. Director Tech, I'll let you take the lead on 15 through 24, please. Walk us through.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 15 is a change order for the current Omaha Street construction project. This project will extend into next year, so there will be additional change orders plus and minus. This is standard business. Item 16, I believe there may be some questions on it. This is in regards to change order for the Fitzgerald Stadium renovation. I've got Rod Johnson here from Public Works, who's infinitely familiar with the project.
I have people jumping in the queue. Is this for 15 or 16 or 16? Can we stop right there? Okay. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. In regards to item 16, which is an increase in the change order for $124,000 some dollars, I seem to recall when the meeting was held here and the presentation was done about the stadium and the city agreed to back the money and all of that, it seems to me someone along the line said if any more expenses come along, that group would be taking care of them on their own. Now, was I dozing off, or did other people hear that too? It seemed the heads nodding. It seems like other people agree with me. So I was surprised to see a change order come forward when it was acknowledged and quasi-agreed to that any other expenses that came along, they would be responsible for. So I need to know why there's a request for an increase when that was what was acknowledged and stuff like that.
Johnson?
Yeah, I can address that. The city does have a memorandum of understanding with Black Hills Sports, and basically how that reads, if the total cost of the project exceeds this amount, that being the $5 million that was awarded by the city, the parties agree any additional costs will be the sole responsibility of Black Hills Sports. So the way that is being handled, and in this case, what we're looking at is an additional 3 bays. Those are things that really need to be done through change order to the contract they're part of or in addition to that project. it goes back to, I think, you know, the wording of the memorandum that basically says any costs would be the responsibility of Black Hills Sports. In this case, what that's doing is it's actually shifting more of the cost of the synthetic turf, which is about $500,000 to Black Hills Sports. So, yeah, we will not pay more than $5 million for this project. Does that make any sense to you, sir?
Some, not enough yet, though. So how are we not paying more when there's an increase? When we're being asked to pay $124,000 more, are we under the $5 million cap at this point?
Yes.
So we agreed at a $5 million.
Yep.
So this $124,000 change order increase still has us under $5 million.
Yes, it does.
That is the case. Okay,
That is
so
correct.
since that was the agreement, then if there's, how much wiggle room is there in that $5 million for more change orders?
We will have approximately $66,000 yet in contingency. Now, that excludes the synthetic turf. So that cost at this point would be primarily the responsibility of Black Hills Sports, which they're aware of. They were the ones that recommended this, you know, this increase as far as the 3 bays are concerned. But again, we will not exceed the $5 million city funding.
Yeah, and thank you, Rod, because that cleared it up for me 100%. We agreed, and we'll live up to what we agreed to, but we're not Perkins. We don't have a bottomless cup of coffee here, so that's what I needed to know. Thank you very much, Rod.
You're welcome.
Ms. Drew?
So when you're talking about with the exclusion of the synthetic turf, what does that mean?
So part of, a major part of this project was replacing the natural grass out there with synthetic turf. Within the city contract, we are preparing the sub-basin drainage for that. And then will be another contract that'll actually be coming in front of you in the next, within the next month or two for the purchase of that synthetic turf. We had already requested permission to purchase that through, purchasing agency. And that will be coming back to you, but that will also be coming back to you with with the funding necessary to purchase that from Black Hills Sports.
So they have that funding covered,
Yes.
yet we have to approve it. So this is not in addition to, or I won't see contracts with, putting this in that will add to that $5 million.
It will, certainly will, but they will be providing the money.
Okay, thank you, that's what I want.
Mr. Stroman, you have the floor.
Rod, so there's I guess, not a lot of wiggle room, but there's some contingency still, is that right? I mean, on this project?
Yes.
Well, and I know that you probably already considered it, and it was probably already included in the original design and then had to be taken out because of cost considerations, but I've talked to people that say that we need to have an umpire locker room at that facility so that when in order to get these big tournaments, which they're already scheduling, like the regionals and stuff like that, that they want to have those types of facilities so they aren't like going into the men's restroom after making a questionable call and getting yelled at when they, and so is there any possibility of coming up with some locker rooms, and probably have to be men's and women's, because I know that we have some of the umpires now are, on the boys' games are women, and so is there any possibility that you're going to be able to come up with a plan for that?
Yes. So as we work through this project and recognizing that early on that we had a little more in our cart than that we were probably going to be able to support with city funding, this project was set up with a base bid and then 5 alternates. We, even the base bid, we had to come up with what we call value engineering with the contractor in order to, get within our, our budget amount. That drove the project, the contract project down from a little under 5 million to, it was about 4.4 million, with the understanding that as Black Hills Sports was able to, work through some of their fundraising, so on and so forth, we'd be able to bring some of these things back. First alternate was the 3 canopies. We're bringing them back. The second alternate was an umpire building. That is something that we're going to be working through here, in the next few months to decide how we can accomplish that. And there's different ways to do that. It could be done within the existing building there. It could be done with a small addition to the existing building, or it could be done as a separate building. And I think what we need to do is we kind of need to work through, with Black Hills Sports, okay, how do you want to approach this? How much money, can we put toward this? And then come up with that solution, because, whoever this person is, yeah, they're right. We need to be able to accommodate umpires, not only for large tournaments, but just for, games in general. So that's something that we will be working through with Black Hills Sports to come up with a solution for that. So it was there in the beginning. We had to set it aside, but it hasn't been forgotten.
Mr. Jones?
A brief umpire comment. I refereed high school football for 33 years and changed clothes in about every gas station across South Dakota before and after games. So I can't tell you how important having decent locker rooms for the umpires would be. It's really vital from a safety standpoint, from a comfort standpoint, and everything. So I'm happy to hear that that's being considered. Thank you.
Anything else on number 16? Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Mr. Tech, please continue. Number 17.
Item 17 is just an update or amendment to a big grant that we received back in, I think, initially 2016. Project's still underway. We just need to update the agreement as time has passed. Nothing's changed as far as the project's concerned. DOT is just requesting that we amend the agreement to make it current. Item 18, this is a seek proposals or RFPs for a sewer trunk project in, I believe it's down in the Robbinsdale area. This project has been identified for a number of years. I believe it was back in our last, or actually prior to our last utility system master plan in 2008. So this is a project that we need to get done in the very near future. Based on condition, age of our infrastructure is identified as an area that needs some attention. Item 19 is a request to advertise for bids. We need to do some abandonments of some old infrastructure. The new infrastructure has been built. So this is just taking care of those items to make sure that we don't have operational issues if they remain in the ground.
Mr. Evans?
I've got a question on 20. Thank you.
As do I.
Oh, okay.
Item 20, the amount that's listed there has a punctuation typo. It should be $2,500,000 instead of that odd period that's in there. So this is the second phase of our downtown lighting project. As most of you know, the first phase has been completed, and that was the replacement of the existing fixtures downtown with the decorative lighting. This next phase will include the addition of new lighting as was designed by the engineer and approved by the council acting as the vision committee. So that's what this project is. Any questions?
Ms. Drew?
Yeah, I bet we have the same question. Are these lights constructed with dark sky considerations and recommendations?
We went through this whole discussion with the first phase, and the design did their very best to accommodate cutoff fixtures and light. They're LED lights, so they're down in that 3,000 Kelvin warmer light instead of the bright light. So yeah, they did the best they could. I believe Dan Sefner worked with the Dark Skies folks best he could, and I think if any of you have seen the performance of the lights downtown, they are not obnoxious. They're very good lights.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Nordstrom, you're in the queue?
No, I think I was next.
Okay.
Yeah, concerning those, do these new fixtures, do these new lighting units have individually controlled IP addresses?
No, they do not. That certainly would have driven the price out of reach.
Well, I think we need to think about this right now. I spent about 5 hours on a National Dark Skies conference last week. The city of Tucson recently replaced all of their lighting. Every single light in the city of Tucson is now controllable individually. They've been experimenting with light levels and the resulting costs and benefits of such. So they can actually decide early in the evening every light is at full value. As the evening goes down and the streets become less occupied, they can decide which ones are dimmable to provide a more relaxed atmosphere at night when not as much lighting is desired or needed. They're finding that the lower contrast of lighting when it's dimmer actually makes for a safer environment because people don't have the contrast of looking at that and the dark shadow over here. So actually they're finding crime rates in lower lighting areas are going down. Now, this is a generational commitment and purchase. And we're moving into a new period, and the cost of LED fixtures drops every day, and you know that from putting lights in your own kitchen, cupboards. So I say we don't rush this. We take another look at the cost of implementing this so that we're ready for the next 25 or 30 years, because that's how long these will last. Now, we could rush into them today and get it done tomorrow, and then we'd be stuck with them for 30 years, whereas technology has moved on beyond what we can do. So I say we step back, take another look at this, even if it costs a little bit more to do it right, but to set us up so that we have the flexibility of doing that. They're also, they have the ability with this to incorporate light shows. Like if you've looked at Nebraska's or Alabama's stadium, I mean, every single light in those light standards is now controllable. It's amazing what you can do with that control. So I'm thinking we need to move in this direction and study a little bit more, even if it costs a little bit more as this initial investment, but it's going to save us, I think, millions over the long haul. So I would suggest we delay this particular vote until we investigate what it would cost to implement the newest technology that gives us that versatility, rather than be stuck with a horse's carriage, when people are driving jets. So that's my point on this.
Mr. Nordstrom, did you want to weigh in?
Thank you. Give me a lot to think about there, Mr. Evans. I'm supportive of this project going forward. So, Mr. Tech, you don't have to get into the details for me, please, as that there was some, as my perspective was there's a lot of misunderstanding what was taking place with the downtown lighting, especially with the Destination Rapid City group. And has that issue been resolved? Do they fully understand what's taking place now? Because at least from my perspective, they were somewhat confused about what was going to be taking place, who was going to do the lighting, et cetera.
I guess I'm confused, Alderman
Okay.
Nordstrom. Who's the confusion with? The Destination Rapid City, it's their project. They've been fully engaged with the bid board, the downtown business owners. As far as I know, there isn't any confusion.
There isn't. Okay. Okay. Maybe it's two different topics, so thank you. That's all I need. I yield.
Mr. Tech, do you care to respond on anything that was said on 20?
Well, certainly as part of the design of the project a year or more ago,
the electrical engineer, Skyline Engineering, that did the design of this project, talked about all the bells and whistles that you could add to these lighting. It comes with a significant price tag. Certainly the funding that was requested by Destination Rapid City for this downtown lighting project was to get the whole downtown core from east to west, Main St. Joe, lit. And it would be significant more to put a complete different control system in it to have customizable lighting. And then you have an operational issue. Who actually does that? You'd have to employ somebody to adjust those lights, and we don't have anybody on staff that would do that. So, you know, this is up to Destination Rapid City if they want to proceed in that manner, but I believe that they've decided that their best effort was this engineered design system, and that'd be their call if they want to proceed down that and request additional vision funds to do that.
Okay. Any more discussion on 20? Okay, moving right along. Thank you, Mr. Landine.
Okay, I think this is a good time to have a discussion about the purpose of this meeting, and I think this is the first thing where it appears there's not. So you're trying to decide whether this is going to go onto the agenda for a vote on Monday night, it seems to me. Okay? Now you have Alderman Evans is saying, hey, I think we should take a step back, maybe not approve this on Monday night, maybe have a further discussion. So it seems to me the question in front of you right now is, do you want to keep this going to Monday night to approve the requested action to keep this project moving forward, or do you want to hold off, have staff look at that issue that Alderman Evans brought up, maybe take it to the next working session? I'm assuming that Mr. Seffner or Destination Rapid City is going to have some comments. So I think you do have to give us some direction whether you want to have this discussion on Monday night, and you could certainly take it to Monday night and decide on Monday night if you want to continue it to give Mr. Seffner or that group an opportunity to come in. And then if you decide on Monday night you want it to go to the next working session to get some figures or numbers for how much what Alderman Evans is suggesting might cost, and at least look at that as an option before you award it. So I think today you can decide, is it going to go to council Monday night, or are we going to send it to the next working session? And if you send it to the next working session to have further discussions about what Alderman Evans has brought up, what information do you want? I assume cost and some other time, things like that. So I think this is the opportunity to give us, before you just move on, some direction of how you want to proceed on this.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, I'll let you.
Yeah, that was my point. I think we should just walk it back for a little bit, find out what's been part of the discussion. I don't know as all the options were presented to people and they know the advantages of spending a little more. I look at when the last lighting was put in 1991. Now that means we're stuck with these for 30 years, but these are LEDs, which means they could easily last 50 years. I don't want to limit what we can do by not exploring the options, even if it's more expensive, because I think in the overall, it's going to save us money. So I say we delay this, not discuss it on Monday, and get more fact-finding out there from people like Mr. Seffner.
Okay, so I think we have two options here. We can move it to Monday, and we will actually have a full council of 10 members, or we can move it to the next working session. This is Mr. Taft.
Dale, is it going to cause any problems if we delay this for another working session?
I do believe it will. Certainly, this is the time of the year to solicit bids for this project. Winter time or beginning of winter is the time to solicit bids for construction next year. I would feel very uncomfortable. This isn't a public works project. We're managing the project on behalf of Destination Rapid City. So I don't see anybody here today from them. So certainly I think it'd be most appropriate to have this on the agenda Monday night so Destination Rapid City can be here to answer any questions.
We did the same thing when we did discussion with Alley Lighting, and it caused a big fight. I say we have this discussion amongst ourselves with the parties and not do it at Monday night's meeting, because that caused a lot of upset people. I think we can hold off. There's no rush on doing this. 1991, we did it the last time. Well, we got a long bit of leeway here. I say we just hold back, make some calls, talk to people. We can vote on it in 3 weeks rather than 1, so.
Mr. Jones?
I want to comment on what our city attorney said, and he always has good advice, and thank you for saying that, because when we had Public Works and when we had Legal and Finance, we would vote whether or not to move things forward. So, we've said in this new meeting setting, we will not take any votes of any kind. Well, I think we're limiting ourselves too much. We have to be able to do exactly what Joel said, to decide if we're going to move things forward or not. So I don't think we're violating any open meeting or anything like that by voting to move things forward. We did in Legal Finance all the time and other committees. So we're legit to do that, I would assume, as we have growing pains in this new setting thing. So we have to be able to decide what to do, what to move forward or not. Whether it's a vote or a shake of the heads or whatever, we have to be able to have a way to do business.
Okay, great. Ms. Drew?
Thank you. I think back to my friend, once again, the friend that always thought we had more time, and I think we don't have more time on this. I don't think it's open-ended, as Councilman Evans has said. I want to respect the timelines as put forth by the people that have been working on this. And I don't know how to do this, but I'd like to move it to council with a do pass recommendation.
Mr. Lehman?
I agree. I support Darla in that decision.
I guess by a show of hands, move it by Monday, to Monday as set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll still have this discussion on Monday. I think we'll go. Okay. Mr. Tech?
Thank you. Moving on, items 21, 22 is a purchase of GPS equipment. The first one is for our engineering division, our land surveyor. It's time to update the equipment he uses. He's truly a one-man show, so this GPS equipment allows him to do his job quickly, effectively, and maintain excellent records for the city as far as the infrastructure that we're building and property corners that we recover in the process of building infrastructure. And then item 21 is purchase of GPS equipment, I believe, for our utility maintenance folks. Once again, they use it for mapping purposes for our underground utilities as they are either doing taps or services or any sort of updates while they're out in the field when the underground stuff is exposed. So this allows us to have a much more robust mapping system and know where our infrastructure is to within probably a centimeter. Moving on to item 23, this is our annual 5307 funds for our rapid transit. So this is our annual grant that we apply for federal cost share, cost share for our operation of our transit system.
What is the ratio?
It varies. It's either 80-20 or 50-50, and that depends if it's capital improvements or operational costs.
Thank you. Mr. Nordstrom.
Mr. Tech, this doesn't have anything to do with the transportation study that's coming up?
No, the transportation study, I believe, is being funded through the MPO.
MPO? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then item 24 is a sidewalk variance. It's out on West Highway 44, very near the fish hatchery. If you look across the road from the fish hatchery, there's an area of rockfall. I think it would be quite dangerous to install sidewalk in that area, as well as the grades don't allow for that. So staff's recommendation is to approve this particular sidewalk variance. That's why it's on the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Tech. Do we have any questions for him? Great, thank you. Chief Hedrick, you're up, number 25.
Thank you.
So this is just the continuation of our Project Safe Neighborhood grant through the Department of Justice. We engaged with this grant last year into this year, and what we're asking to do is continue it into 2021. It covers the salary of one of our full-time detectives. There is no match on the part of the city, so really our engagement here is cooperating with the local federal system to collaborate on cases of violence involving guns and drugs, and we are wishing to continue and move this thing forward another year. It's a year-by-year grant, so each year we have to come back and ask to receive the funding.
Any questions? Oh, Mr. Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief Frederick, your predecessor talked about some additional security systems such as cameras within the community. Does any of this grant be able to apply towards a system like that?
This is mostly just designated towards the salary of an employee that's working hand in hand with our local federal agencies, specifically addressing crimes of violence. This grant in particular doesn't, but there could be something else out there that we could look at. If we see that, we'd be able to look into that further and bring it before you.
Very good, thank you.
All right, thank you. Now is time for public comment. Thank you for your patience. We have 3 public comment forms. Let's start with Mr. Fairbanks. Please come to the podium. We'll give you 3 minutes. Late. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Troy Fairbanks. I live at 110 East Watertown, Lot 38. 3 minutes isn't even it ain't even going to give me a chance to have a voice.
Well, I'll turn
But
it off.
I'll say it like this. You know, with this council, I stood up here. I also am the 6th generation grandson of Chief Sitting Bull. I know my heritage all the way down from, I know Sitting Bull's fathers, because that's my name. My grandfather gave me. He gave me Jumping Buffalo, Tatanka Apsipsicha. And to see this to come to fruition, that something would actually be done for Native Americans, let's be real. Never happened before. Why should it happen now? And it's not giving up. It's just a prayer. You know, Grandpa said it best. He said, let's look to the future so we can put our minds together, so we can look for a future for the children. I heard about roads, and I heard about changing what it says in the proposal. Geez, wow. Let's really look at it. Land given back to us. The United States Supreme Court issued the HACIPA, the Black Hills claim. They want to give us money. Talking about $20 million for roads and stuff. Are trying to do something for natives. Ain't going to happen. But I appreciate the discussion, because what brings about for the very first thing ever, if this ever goes through, is that actually someone looked at Native people and said, hey, you do matter. Native lives matter. And your Constitution. And it's not going to be trick or treaty anymore for us. You'll actually take a look at what the treaty means and what it means to have a right for our ancestors and to be a Native American. You know, my father was an Air Force officer out here at Ellsworth. He's buried at the Soldiers Fort, or Soldiers Cemetery over by Sturgis, and I'm proud of that. And I'm proud to be a Native American. Instead of being separated and always pushed down and stepped on. I went through that when I was younger. Now, each and every one of you, I don't care what color your skin is, you're my brothers and my sisters. If something gets done, wow, it'll be the first time ever for Native people in this community. We went through so much and have endured so much. I'm one of the best performers. I'm actually the #1 performer in the state of South Dakota. And I've danced up at Crazy Horse Monument. I've danced up at Keystone. I've danced up at Deadwood. And guess what? Someone, not from our community, but from a city that got denied to be called a city, gave me a lifetime contract. And I love him for it. He said, when you die, your children get this, and then after they pass on, he says, your great-grandchildren will get this. And that man was Rod Woodruff of the Buffalo Chip. Man, I love that guy. Because he said, I don't want your heritage to die. You know, the only reason I ever started dancing again is because my fiance, Billy Joe, she said, you think they'd ever want to see? I said, what do you think? I said, do you think anyone would ever want to see natives dance? And she looked at me, she said, I think so. And so where the Buffalo Dreamers came from, there was a film that was made. It was called Dances with Wolves. And they were going to make part 2 to that, and they came to our traditional elders and they said, what should part 2 be called? And it was never made. And our elders said, the Buffalo Dreamers. So to carry that on, we started that business, the Buffalo Dreamers. If something ever happens of this, because when it comes down to it in treaty law, the land is ours. Will it be respected as that? No. Will it be given a contention towards our heritage and our spirituality? No. Maybe. For the first time ever, for someone to ever look at this would be, guess what? It wouldn't be Doksha Black Hills or Doksha government, but to actually give us the respect that, as a human being, that we deserve would be the Rapid City Council. Wow. They would be the first ones that ever stood up and said, the treaties are important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fairbanks. David Swallow. Thank you for being here.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm David Swallow, as you said, in your piece of paper. And I'm from the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, camp number 344. And also I am a headsman and a representative of the Oceti Sakowin, the original Oceti Sakowin. And they have sent me, I didn't come on my own. They have sent me, I don't want nothing from you guys or anything. Oceti Sakowin don't want nothing from you, but to give you advice to come, and that's why I was sent here, okay? So, I'm from the Crazy Horse Band of my grandfathers and their grandfathers, so on and so forth, all that history, you know, all that. I'm from there. But the Oceti Sakowin, I'm a headsman and a spokesperson for the Oceti Sakowin, the original Oceti Sakowin, which run by pure bloods, 4/4 pure bloods, in order to qualify to be an Oceti Sakowin. And you have, ancestor has to be a treaty signer of the 1851 and 1868 of Fort Laramie. See? Okay, now you do understand. It's a little history I'm giving you. So you do understand. I was sitting here listening to it, and the city council was really confused. The city council is confused. Whose entity that we have to listen to? Whose entity, you know? So I'm giving you a history lesson here. And when we come through 1889, the reservation was formed by Congress, Act of Congress, see? To hold the Indian there away from the homeland of the Black Hills until we could reorganize our own original Oceti Sakowin, which is happening now, see? So that's not a reservation, it's not a Sioux nation. We're not Native Americans. We're not. I am a Teton Lakota. And there are some Dakotas and Nakotas. See? We are people of this land, of this country here. Understand that. See? So, and then in 1934, Indian Reorganization Act was formed, again, by the act of Congress, see? To have, what is better known today is the Tribal Council, okay? And before that, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA. See? So now I am here, and I was sent here to tell you the city of Rapid City, City Council, and the mayor has opened a can of worms, you know, which I hope he doesn't do that, see? To discriminate our people from being, there's many homeless here. There's colored people, there's Mexicans, and there's whites homeless here, you know? There are many homeless here. And I'll get to that later on, okay? But see, those entities right there doesn't represent the Oceti Sakowin. We are not IRA, we are not BIA. We are the original Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, Oceti Sakowin. 7th Council Camp Fire. 7th Council Camp Fire came here before the treaty, before America. It was the old how it was running. That's now, it's waking up. So now I'm supposed to tell you this too. You know? So that's who we are, okay? And, okay, the reason why the native, you call them the Native American, my people, my relatives, come here to Rapid City. Some of them are looking for a better life to live in Rapid City. We're progress. We want to progress too, you know, to have a better life. They're not all alcoholics. There's some working here, see, on their own homeland. They're working here. And they want to improve their life because, let me tell you one thing, on the reservation, there is no life on that reservation. You have to see that as a white man with holding the office. That's just a holding place for the Lakota people, see? Nothing on the reservation is the medicine, the schooling. You have to, you know, and I believe the 1934 Act has a charter from the state of South Dakota, so that's under governor's jurisdiction right there. And I believe this reservation signed off Public Law 280, see? That's why they're having a casino down there. So that's, again, under the NUM's jurisdiction, see? And any entity that comes here that has a nonprofit organization and has a charter number, it's not our problem. It's your governor's problem right there. Understand that? You do understand, right? Okay. And to the homeless, it would be better if you see alcohol and drugs. We've seen it. Oceti Sakowin is seen as a white man problem, not a Lakota problem. We don't invent the alcohol and drugs. So the way we see it, we're going to slowly coming up. We are slowly coming. We are farming now, just this year and all summer and everything, you know. So to me, if you build something to rehabilitate these sicknesses, see, if you want to help, then what do you call the Native Americans here? I heard you mention some $20 million. Help them rehabilitate from this sickness. Do not arrest them. Put them in these rehabilitation centers. Some of them are graduates, you know. Some of them have degree out there, broken spirit from the reservation. And some of them got away and they make a life out here. See, we are people, human being, like they said. So you need to understand these things here. But when it comes to land, you are in a violation of a treaty law when it comes to land, see? And that will come up. And she is right, you know. So I'm sent here to tell you that this Ochibada Ocheti Shakowi, the original campfire of the Lakota, Dakota, Nakota nations. This covered the whole 1851-1868 Federal Army Treaty, and I believe it was signed by your president, and it's in the records. And they said the treaty is old. No. So as the U.S. Constitution is way older, see? So now, we're not here. I'm not sent to start any conflict. I am sent here to advise you so we could coexist and make something better for our future generation, see? Like that. But do respect the law. Understand? Okay? So now I come here, and I hope you got the recording that I spoke on the behalf of the Ocheti Shakoi, the original Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, Ocheti Shakoi. And I am one of the headsmen here. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Swallow.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much,
being
too.
here. Thank you.
Oh, one more thing. If the meeting, how we could, to stay, if you ever wanted anything on the Lakota, then, you contact us and we'll contact you in that matter.
Thank you.
Not these nonprofit organizations. We don't work with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Billy Joe Brown? It doesn't say what you're speaking on.
I'm speaking on the land.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. On first subject here, I wanted the letter from Heather that says the BIA gave her authorization to talk on my behalf. I want to see that letter. Nobody showed us no letter. These people just came in here and made this coalition and let's get some land. She's talking to a few people in the city. I was born and raised here. I'm an Oglala Lakota Sioux. My children are Oglala Lakota Sioux. My grandkids are like that, my greats. And the other thing, and this is what really upset all of us, and this came from this Heather. Okay, on the meeting on October 28th, the meeting's over with. She sends me a text. This is going to pass on Monday. We have a lot to do. No, she doesn't speak for us Indians in Rapid City. We have our own voice. We can speak it ourselves. These guys came from wherever, and then everybody's bowing down to them. I'm not bowing down to these guys, and these guys ain't speaking on my behalf. I want to see this letter where the BIA gave her authorization to talk on my behalf. She's never produced anything. She's out there at that Indian chairman out in the valley. Why do we have that building here? Why is this Indians paying for a $1 million building when we're all suffering up here? There's no housing. Let's take that building and put our homeless in it. We paid for that. We own it. I'm tired of this. This woman came here and she's upsetting all of us. She told me in a text that this land swap got approved of. I've never heard of us getting approved of anything. We fought hard and long to keep Suisan where it's at. I was born and raised here. I've used Suisan. My kids use Suisan. My grandkids use Suisan. My greats use Suisan. We all use Suisan, and they try to take that away from us. We fought it, and we won it. Suisan will stay where Suisan's at. We will not get a clinic at Suisan. We are entitled to a full hospital at Suisan. They brought in this here Geraldine Church. Okay, don't know where she came from. She popped out of the ground. She went up there and she tore apart our Suisan. Have you guys gone to Suisan? See that water tower laying over like that? That was a disgrace to us. That Suisan has always been my hospital, always will be my hospital. We get all these little trickles coming in, and they're all 638 contracts. They're out there for money. They're not out there for us or our families. I was born and raised in this city. I pay my dues to this city. I do whatever I have to do to live in this city amongst everybody. And you guys are going to let these little people come in here and try to take over and tell us what it's... No. No, 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 no. I want that letter from the BIA that gave her authorization to talk for me, because there is no letter. The BIA did not give her authorization. These guys are all about money. They heard and said $20 million. These guys are going to come running. They're going to line their pockets with that money. Us Indians that live here are going to pay these taxes. And we are going to have to live with what we live with up here. We heard the mayor. I'm going to get some RVs and some buses, and I'm going to ship them back to the reservations. No, 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 sir. You're not going to do that on my watch. We paid our dues to be here, and I intend to be here. And with this land, you guys need to sit down with us and really figure it out. What partial lands you're talking about? And why can't we coexist with the land that we got here? Why do we got to swap it out? They're trying to put our Susan out by Menards at some swampland. Us Indians don't go to Menards. We don't have money to do that. We barely get a ride up to Susan to take, and when we go up there, we take the whole crew. We take 5 or 6 kids with us at one time to get them treated so we can all go home. What Geraldine did to our Susan, we take one child up there. That one child will get medicine. That one child is going to share with all these other kids because of what she did and what our tribes have no say-so in here. Do not let our tribes come up here and try to take over. They steal from our reservations right and left. Let them steal from them because those people allow it. They came up here, Illini, Rosebud, Eagle Butte, Cheyenne, all spent $2 million in this city for Illini. You call back home, oh, I don't got no lights. Oh, my propane's on 3%. So where's that $2 million that these officials are spending? They need to keep that money at home and spend it on their people down there. Because us Indians that live in Rapid City, we know how to take care of us. But I got these text messages from her saying that on Monday, on the 28th, this all went through. So that's what upset everybody. And I know all of you guys got emails because me and my sister talk. I know my sister sent emails, and she'll send some more. And if you guys want treaty laws, whatever you guys need to help us get through this, let us know, because my sister is very smart. She will find you anything that you need to know about it. She will find you it. But right here, right now, we are talking. We're not fighting or anything. We're talking. But no, that Heather, Don Tom, she don't speak on my behalf or my family's behalf. And Geraldine Church, she does not speak on my behalf or my family's behalf. We fought long and hard to keep Susan where it was. They were ready to take it away from us then and move us out to Menards. No, we fought it. We want it. All we're saying is treat us equally. That land's been there for over 100 years. Now all of a sudden everybody wants to come in and take claim on it? No, that's not going to happen. You guys sit down with the Indians of Rapid City, not some people that came off the reservation, got an education, think they can come up here and rule me. No. And as far as my tribe, I don't want my tribe to be involved in any of this because they're going to steal it. They will steal something from us because that's the way they operate. But all I'm saying is we need to come together as a community. We all live here. We all grew up around here. There was stuff that goes on here. When AIM came, they actually set us back 100 years. I was a little girl when they came, and my mom was downtown. Thank God my stepdad went and got her, or she could have got hurt, because they didn't care who they hurt. They were just out there to hurt whoever. But as far as this land swap, we got to learn how to coexist and do it where all of us benefit and not just the certain ones like this Heather. This Heather wants that $20 million. That's all she wants. They're going to steal that money, and us Indians ain't going to have anything. We're going to get taxed for that land that we own, and we're going to end up with nothing because they're going to get it on back taxes from us. So we all need to come together. All of us that live in this city and pay these dues in this city, we all need to come together. So if you guys are on it, then pass out the word, because we need to eliminate them. We just need to eliminate those people. They may be attorneys, they may be whatever, but they didn't grow up in this city, and they don't live in this city the way we do. And so we need more meetings on this. We need to come together and try to figure out a plan before they get some buses and RVs and send us back to wherever. Because I haven't lived on my reservation since I was a little girl. My parents you know how I got off that reservation? My reservation gave my parents, it was called, think of it, relocation. That's what it was. It was called relocation. I said, Dad, why didn't we stay down there like Uncle Garfield and him? You know what he said? I'd never fight GT over the same job. So that's why we left that reservation, because they gave my parents a way out and they took it. They don't want, you guys gave me numbers to call for help for my grandkids on rent. They said they couldn't help them unless they had the covert. Well, thank God they don't got that covert. So those organizations ain't helping my grandkids with rent. They are pinching pennies. They are cleaning houses. They're dog walking. They're doing whatever they got to do to come up with that rent money. Because there's nobody here that's going to come in and say, let me help you guys out. There's nobody in this town that's going to come and help them. And I know that, and they know that. What you get in life is what you get, what you put into it. Nobody ain't going to come over there and give you a silver spoon. And as Indians, we're way down here at the bottom. We're barely getting ourselves up there. And we got this coalition that comes in here. They don't talk on my behalf. They don't talk on my family's behalf. And you got to understand, I came from a big family. My one brother has 7 kids. My one sister has 7 kids. That's 14 kids just there. And all of them use Susan, and all of them live here. So I don't want these people coming in here and trying to make a big old ruckus. And they want the money. They don't care about the land. They don't care about us. They want the money. That's all they want is that money. Where are those people at now? Where's Heather and her crew at? Where are they? They should have a representative here. We should have a representative from the BIA here. They're just passing the buck is all they're doing, and it's got to stop.
Okay.
We've been looking at this since 1984. In 1984, we thought, oh, the elders will take care of it. They know what they're going to do. They've been here longer. They just pushed it down. Now it's my generation that's got to get up here and figure this out. And yeah, they say that we need this and that. One thing that I know that we need in this city, for all people, not just natives, we need a treatment center. I have family that's on that meth. When they're on it, I hate them all. I say, I don't hate you, I hate that drug.
Right.
You are perfect to me, but when you're on that drug, That's our number one. We need a facility to help with the meth, be front, and we need a dormitory that can house all these Native children that are being taken because of the meth. Those are big questions here. We don't need the $20,000. They try to give us money for the Black Hills. We never took it because we were taught early on, there's nothing you can take when you leave this world. Nothing. You can't take your house, can't take your car, you ain't take no money. You ain't taking anything when you leave. What we got right here is what we need to keep. And those people that are out there and thinking they talk on our behalf, no. Let's go out there and let's shut down that there chairman's board out there. That's a $1 million building. Who came up with that money? Who decided to have that?
Okay.
I didn't vote that, and I'm Native American. I never said build that building. Let's go shut them down, and let's turn that into a quarantine place instead of trying to do it in these motels that keep spreading it. Gerald Lynn went and had three motels? 3 motels in Rapid City. She rented to quarantine people in. They weren't quarantined in there, and you cops know that. You guys went out there and stopped fights. You guys went out there and stopped drugs. That's what she was doing with our money. We got, in Congress, we got $1.17 billion to build ourselves a facility up at IHS. Where's that money? Who's dipping into it? All of these reservations, they all got new hospitals. They're going to give us a clinic? I don't think so. We're entitled to a full facility up there, and that's what we're going to get.
All right, Ms. Brown, I hear you loud and clear. I see your passion, and I promise you what you have said will be duly noted. I believe this will be moving forward, and we will take everybody's consideration.
Well, don't leave us out. At least, if you guys can't,
Absolutely. That's why we
write
have
us a
public
letter,
comment.
tell us ahead of time these meetings are.
Okay.
And we'll come, because this is important to my great-grandkids.
Okay.
They're gonna live in the city the rest of their lives. I wanna make sure that they're comfortable and there's stuff there for them. Because actually, there's nothing in this town for my kids or your kids. There's no roller skating.
Right,
There's no drive-in theater.
right.
And
But
that's
we'll
why
get-
all
we'll
these
get
kids.
down to that. I think
Okay.
what you've said has been great, and thank you for coming. We do appreciate it. Before we have a motion to adjourn, I would like feedback. Mr. Stroman was kind enough to already send me his. If we want to talk about that amongst ourselves, or if we can go to Mr. Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just very briefly, I want to thank you for recording this meeting. I know that was something that I had requested, and I'm glad that it was recorded for those who could not attend, not just the public, but for the council members who can attend. I would urge us to continue to do that. That would be very important. Secondly, I would just say perhaps public comment, either going first or by topic, might be helpful for all of us. And maybe enforcing time limits on us as well as everyone else, just making sure that we have guidelines in place and that we adhere to it. That might be helpful as well. Those are just a few things off the top of my head.
That's what we want. Okay, anything else?
If my colleagues would just like to send us an email with any comments, thoughts, anything we can make this more efficient, we'd greatly appreciate it.
And that goes to the public as well, directors, city staff. Bear with us, this was our first working session. We're going to kind of get through the glitches. I appreciate everybody's time and patience. We didn't anticipate this going 2.5 hours, but we will get through this together, and I would welcome a motion to adjourn. Okay, right, there we go, we're adjourned.